Welcome to another edition of Litter Media Live, a special edition. Today we're focusing on the covering, and we have with us Ashley Patton in studio. Good to see you.
Yes, thank you for having.
Thank you for coming down. She's from the Circleville area. We're going to tell you a little bit more about the covering, what she does, and what the covering is all about. Right after this, from the Bean Foundation.
The Bean Foundation wants to raise awareness about suicide prevention by sharing 988. Trained crisis counselors are available to talk 24/7, 365 days a year. 988. Save the number. Save a life. To learn more about the Bean Foundation, click on this ad on littermedia.com.
Back with Ashley Patton, and we want to talk about the covering. And the covering is really helping people come out of addiction, but not just addiction, other circumstances in their lives.
Yes, that's right. We serve all women. There's no criteria that you have to hit to come in. There's no box that you have to fall in. If there's any lady that's in need, no matter what the struggle is, and they're willing, and they're a little bit open to the Lord, willing to follow the rules, we'll take them. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
We were talking beforehand. This is a ministry-based program.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
How did this all start for you? Because I know you had a past.
Yes.
And now you're helping others with pasts.
Yeah. So if I could go back, I struggled with addiction for almost 20 years. And then that led me into really trying to find some type of being sober. How do I do life with no drugs? I tried a lot of the programs. I went through a lot of programs in the Columbus area and really just couldn't catch long-term sobriety. And so in April 2018, I found my way into a program called The Refuge. It's a men's ministry, and they were opening up a women's program. And so I went in and really for the first time was a part of a discipleship program. I never knew anything about a relationship with the Lord. I never knew anything about really the ways of the Lord. And I went in just because I was tired and desperate. It was very real to me. I was either going to live or die. It was very that simple. And so this was kind of my last ditch effort, is to go into this program. And so I went in, and it was about 6 months in when the Lord just completely delivered me from that lifestyle. I no longer had the desire to want to go back and do any of that. And I had never thought that way in my life. So that was one of the first miracles that God did for me. But I stayed in that program for almost 19 months, and he just began to do more and more and more. And while I was there, I really, the Lord ministered to me about pulling women out. And that was something that I just became very passionate about going to where they are, whether that's the street or, where they're prostituting or where, the drugs are happening, going to them, meeting them where they are, and just simply saying, I was once this. And if God can change me, he can change you. It's a very simple thing. And so the Lord really laid that on my heart early on. And so he filled me with purpose and passion to want to go and help other women. And so he also, I went through the program, I completed and did 19 months. And then my son was with my parents at the time. They had custody of him. And so while I was walking through this program, this residential program, really only seeing him once a month, the Lord began to transform him just through my journey. And so I began to see God, not just the power of how he transformed women, but how he does it with everybody. And so my son began to, be this whole new person just through my journey. And really the Lord was ministering to him. And so I went to the refuge, asked me to come work on staff after I completed. Mm-hmm. And so I went to work on staff, and I was there for about 6 months, and the women's side closed. So a few of us got together and said, well, we've kind of been walking with women for a decent amount of time. If we were to create something, what would we create? How would we build the best of the best, knowing what we know now? And really the point being is serving women holistically, because there's a lot of places out there that will take the girl out of the darkness. They'll kind of clean them up. But what about helping them all the way through and really how God intended them to be? Which is mothers and aunts and sisters and, keepers of the home, a homemaker, a wife. How do we help women really all the way until that point, until they know and believe that they are who God's created them to be? And so we started to create what the covering is now today. And that was in 2021. We kind of just started with a whiteboard and marker, and we just started to dream about what this would be. And we created, at the time, it was a 9-month residential with the option of transitional so that women can have their children after that first chunk of discipleship. And so we created a holistic approach to helping women really with any problems, and helping them, and to back into what the Lord had intended them to be. And it looks different for each girl. Yeah. If a girl has struggled with 20 years of drug addiction versus a girl that's never struggled with drug addiction, that first chunk pretty much looks the same of the 12-month discipleship where they're being poured into. But that last part and that transitional part, it looks different for all of them, just depending upon what they've been through. So all of that kind of really came about, and I am very passionate about, because this is how the Lord, has transformed me and in my life. And it wasn't just about me. It was really never about me. It's about how God can use me and for others. And then he did a miracle in my son. And I just really believe that God can transform families in a family setting. And so that's what we do at the Covering today.
It's not about us. It's about his glory.
That's right. That's exactly right.
When you really sit down and think about it. And I heard it said recently by a recovering addict that his mother said, you can't hit rock bottom until you hit rock bottom and find out what the rock is to stand on. Oh. And that's Jesus Christ.
That's good.
And it really impacted his life and has turned him completely around. Yeah. And it can happen for all these women. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a story. There's no question there. It's just, how do we get to a point to help them find their way?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So at the Covering today, I do outreach. That's my role. I do all things outreach, make all the outside connections outside the ministry. But another special thing is I get to do all of the screening for the women when they call in. And so I get an opportunity to hear their stories. And so I've been doing this, full swing for the past almost 5 years. And I'm kind of catching a rhythm to things and the calls and I see the Lord already preparing them before they're coming. Really, that is the case. I know that because I know they're supposed to be with us just by hearing what God's already doing, and he's already drawing them. It's a really incredible thing. A lot of them will say, a lot of the calls, the ladies are saying, I've cried out to God for the first time. That's a common theme. Another thing is, God is speaking to me. And so they'll kind of, they'll somehow try to communicate that to me in the best way. And I can hear the Lord kind of speaking to them in different areas. So it really is an incredible thing how God kind of does that before they even come.
Yeah. Well, that's that pre-work that's being done to make it easy for them. It's not easy. Let's put it that way. But when you're willing to allow a change in your heart, that's when you take that first step, I think.
Yeah.
Because if you want ice cream and you want mom or dad to stop and pull over, you want to make sure you get their attention, right?
Right.
and so that's what we're doing here with these ladies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be willing.
Yeah.
And, and that comes through being at your rock bottom. When you come to a place where you're absolutely desperate, you're then teachable. Yeah. And it doesn't, I keep thinking, is there another way? Right. Is there another way to this? And I just have not seen that. You have to come to the end of yourself before you come to a very low point where you're ready to let others teach you how to live. Yeah. And that's what it takes. We want to unravel everything that they've learned because it's not done them any good to this point. And I had to be taught, everything from the very beginning. The Lord's ways are not any of our ways. And so it's almost like when these women come in, they're kids. And so we're teaching them how to do everything. And we're rewiring everything they've ever been taught or they've learned.
Yeah. And it comes down to a total surrender.
That's right. That's right.
Once you're ready and you put your mind to it, you can think your way through it, but when you put your heart to it, it changes the ballgame.
Yeah. And that's such a personal thing for each girl. Yeah. I can't say, and we can't put a cookie cutter program together to say every girl's going to catch surrender in the first month or 6 months. For me, it didn't happen until I was in the program for almost a year. And it was just something that I didn't know. Like everything that the Lord had was so foreign to me. It was almost like sometimes they would speak Chinese. That's how I felt. I'm like, I don't understand this. And the Lord had to show me what it really meant to surrender. And that took almost a year for that to happen.
Well, and all you know is what you knew in the past, right?
Exactly.
And so you're learning new things, but it seems like if you sit down and read the Bible and you're a scholar, you're going through it, it doesn't make sense to you. But when the Holy Spirit gets involved,
That's
it
right.
changes the whole outlook.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And it's the woman inside, you know, they're only ready and willing to do what they want to do. And so we can set all these things and try to figure things out, but then there has to be that part on their end where they're also willing to be honest.
Right.
And so sometimes we're just battling the atmosphere of creating trust and allowing them to be comfortable and feel safe and loved before they're even able to do that work. You know, that takes a lot. The lifestyle and kind of what they've been through has put so much wear and tear, not just on their physical body, but on their mind. They've believed so many lies for so long. It may take, you know, a girl 3 months to just trust and believe these things versus somebody else that it may take a couple years. You know, so it's a very hard process. But what I've come to realize, it's a very personal thing. It is something that we can't figure out. It is supernatural work that happens, and it's based on you and the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very personal thing.
Yeah, because all the years that you've been enslaved
Yes.
by what Satan has thrown your way, he doesn't want to let go.
Right.
It's a true battle, but that's all you know, and that's all you trust.
That's exactly right.
But as soon as you can let God break those bonds, it starts a new pathway for you.
That's right.
Tell us about some of your success stories. Obviously, you're one of those success stories, but I'm sure that you've had some gals come through the program that just kind of blow your mind.
Yeah. I think all of them are that way. You know, the ones you try to put a prediction on who's going to make it and who doesn't, and you can't.
Yeah.
You cannot. We just had 2 graduates last night. We had a graduation, and one girl, she is 62. She's been with us 3 times. And so this is her 3rd time. And she has just completed her 12 months. And what God really transforms the ladies on the outside. They look completely different. Yeah. They are softer. They're beautiful women, you know, by the time they allow the Lord to really come in. And so I just think that's an added bonus, you know, to what he can do. But with her, he is restoring her relationships back to her children. You know, she's able to hold a job. She's going to sign on to be one of our house moms. So she not only completed the 12 months, but now she's going to do an additional 6 months to help the women behind her. And so God really, you know, and I kind of heard through the grapevine that, you know, potentially her family will end up blessing her with a vehicle. You know, they're going to buy her a vehicle. So God knows, you know, he knows all of these things, but yeah, so that's just her story. And the other girl that graduated, she just turned 19. And so she left the Fairfield County Jail. She had a lot of trouble in the juvenile system. And so she was in and out of hospitals and you know, the juvenile detention center for most of her her teenage years. Well, she had caught some charges at home for domestic violence a week after she turned 18. And so she spent her first week of being 18 in the adult Fairfield County Jail. And so she left there, and the inmates there kind of took her underneath their wing. They had realized, you know, she hasn't been doing this, and they kind of were protecting her. Well, the inmate that she was released with called me. They had tried to find a place for her to go, and they couldn't find anything. No beds were open. Well, the inmate actually called me and said, hey, I have this girl. She's looking for a place. And we did the intake at 8:00 at night, which we normally do not do. And I said, well, hey, if she's, you know, if she can make it here in 15 minutes, we'll take her. And so she just happened to be 15 minutes from our house. So she came. We did this on a complete fluke and a complete risk that it was going to be okay. We kind of went against what we normally do. And so we brought her in, and God has just completely got a hold of her and transformed everything. She now has a relationship with her family, her mom and dad, the one that she, you know, was having trouble with being there. They now look at her and they say, we are proud.
Great.
We are proud of you. And that was her testimony last night, just simply saying, I can't believe that my parents say they're proud of me. So, you know, and I could go on and on. She's also staying on she's partnered up with that girl, and they're going to both stay on to be a house mom and give. And she said, you know, her testimony was, what God's given me, I want to give back. That's when you really know.
And the contrast between these 2 examples you've given us, one who's lived most of her life in difficulty and now has a completely different outlook, and another who has nothing but her life ahead of her. Fantastic as well. Of course, I've always said that this is a temporary life that we have here. It's what's on the other side that we get to really enjoy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
happy to hear that it's working out this way for these ladies.
Yeah.
If someone wants to help fund your organization, what do they need to do?
We have a website that they can go to. There's a giving link on the website. They're also welcome to call our number. Our number is also on the website. And then that'll be directed to me, and I can help them with whatever they're thinking. You know, if they want to send a check, or they want to be a monthly donor, or they maybe know somebody that wants to give, or they just want to be a one-time donor. If they have any trouble through the website giving that way, they can call me and I can walk them through maybe sending a check, or, you know, whatever form of payment they would like to do.
Yeah. Did you picture yourself doing something like this, say 25, 30 years ago?
I did not. As a little girl growing up, I always wanted to be with my grandmother. I had an uncle that had muscular dystrophy, and I always found purpose and passion in taking care of him. And I loved being with them. And I kind of thought that's what I was going to do. I got a medical degree in 2012. And so I worked in the medical field in a pain clinic for almost 4 years. And I really found my first purpose and passion of loving to care for people. And so when God began to transform me, you know, that scripture in the Bible where it says that he exceedingly does all that we could ever think, ask, or even imagine. I never would have thought I would be an outreach director at a ministry doing this. I mean, he's not only allowed me to do what I'm passionate about, but it's above and beyond what I could have ever have thought of.
That's the way he is.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Again, if you want to find out more about the covering, you can go to your Facebook page.
Yep, that's right.
As well as the website.
Yes.
Web address is?
It's thecovering686.org.
Very good. Anything we've missed that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. I think just I want to speak to anybody that may know any women that are in need. Yeah. We don't want to put a boundary or a box up for God. If there is any women that are struggling, we want them to call. And so our intake number is 614-980-2824. If we're not a fit, I can find a fit. I want to talk to the one that wants help. And so if anybody knows of any, or if you are that lady, we would love to talk with you and come up with something together.
I can feel the purpose and passion just through conversing with you here. God's found a right thing for you to do. Yeah. It sounds great. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Ashley Patton and The Covering. Again, if you know someone who needs help, reach out and give her a call, and we'll get things at least started. The ball will start to roll, so to speak, and God will do the rest. Thanks for watching this edition of Litter Media Live, and thank you also to the Bean Foundation.